What's up, everybody? Welcome to the How to Lead podcast, conversation designed to help you develop yourself and those around you. My name's Adam, joined by Clay. Clay, third conversation we're having about coaching and developing. Bosses are out, coaches are in. We can't say it enough. This is a fundamental shift in leadership that we're witnessing. We're part of it, right? We get to watch this firsthand. And it's a topic you and I get asked to speak on often, or maybe if we're not asked to speak on it, when we do bring it up, it's very relevant for a lot of people. And so we've talked about, the 60-second keeping short accounts. 100 one-minute conversations is better than one 100-minute conversation. We shared some tips and tricks there. The last episode, we talked about the LBNT, kind of that two-step coaching hack. And today we're going to talk about a slightly different scenario, but one that does pop up often. And it is, what do you do in those moments where it's not a hallway conversation, right? It's something you need to spend a little more time talking to somebody about.
I would say for me, most of my life, I had no clue how to say what needed to be said. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I've got stories to prove it. I think I identified probably around the age of 22, 23, that's where I really grabbed a hold of the term people pleaser and realized that, I'm an approval addict, that I want people's approval. I want people's feedback. I want people's acceptance. I want to please them. But I was getting into the church world, becoming a pastor, realizing I was having to have a lot of hard conversation. For me, I actually feel like it was a really great vision that I had for my own career, that I was going to be having more and more of those, which I would say over the course of my career, if there was something that I did more than I ever thought that I was going to do, it was having a hard conversation and learning how to do that. We talked about keeping short accounts. That's just making it regular, the regular ongoing, it's the oil change of feedback. Last episode, we talked about that LBNT, what I like best, what I would do next time. More of the 5-minute, right? More of the, hey, it's still a quick hitter though. I would say this one's a little bit different, right? Because this one is for some of those more difficult conversations that are going to take a little bit more preparation and a little bit more energy on the front end, particularly to get to the point where you can have that difficult conversation. What else would you say about it? Yeah, I mean,
it kind of fits with where we see in the culture, right? Like tweets or X, posts are a big deal, the microblogging, YouTube shorts. But listen, people are still publishing books, right? They're still long
They're
form
still long
audio.
Form podcasts, right?
Yeah, people still watch long movies. And so this is just, like coaching is not a one size fits all. There's lots of different ways that we have to adapt. And these are for some of those longer conversations. I carried some really bad habits into work when I started my career. And I mean, I'm not trying to get too deep here, but it goes back to childhood and like what I saw in childhood on how to handle hard conversations. And that habit is, if you do something that bothers me, I don't tell you. I just stuff it. And I mean, it's like, I justify, it's awkward and it's not that big of a deal and it's me, it's not them. And man, what I know about coming from a long line of stuffers is that you can't stuff indefinitely. There's always a moment, that proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back, and then it's very dramatic. I mean, Kim Scott says that unspoken criticism eventually explodes like a dirty bomb. One of the best ways I know how to describe it. But real example, like my brother didn't talk to me for a couple years when I was growing up, like in college. I have 2 roommates from college that won't talk to me to this day. And that's a result of stuffing and then having an explosion where I finally unleashed everything. And those were just a couple of examples of some habits that I took that into work, where now, guess what, at work, I'm working with people and my bosses and my coworkers, they're kind of annoying. They would do things that bother me, and I just stuff. And actually had a couple incidents where there was like some explosions like I had growing up at work professionally. And it's kind of was that rock bottom moment for me of just going, I think there's got to be a better way. This is going to be a limiter to my career if I don't figure out a way to do this. Not career, maybe even secondary. This just makes me a bad friend, a bad husband, right?
That's right.
A bad person, so to speak, if I'm just surprising people with all this unfiltered, crazy amount of feedback all at one time. So I say all that to go, I feel this personal. this is personal and something that's really invaded my life in a negative way.
This is my tendency, Adam, anytime things get heavy or more serious, to try to lighten the mood with something, which I'm going to just directly and honestly do right now.
Yeah.
But my social media algorithm, it populates my reels or shorts or TikTok, whatever, with comedians. I get a lot of these bits, right? I don't know who this comedian is, but he says, I saw a dad and a little preschool son the other day sitting there, and the dad was quizzing the son on dinosaurs. And he said, why in the world do we need to know the names of dinosaurs? He was like, you know what we really need to know? He ought to be showing him pictures of a woman and go, is she mad? That's what we need to know. That kind of empathy, that kind of ability, right, to be able to know how to navigate some of these complex situations, that's what we need to be teaching kids.
Yes, that is.
And so that's why we thought this is really important to talk about this. But hey, I want to ask you, before we get into you call this the 3IQ system. I want to ask you, why do most people struggle with giving feedback? You mentioned stuffing, but what else? What are some of the most common mistakes that people make?
Well, I mean, it's like there's a laundry list of these excuses. The avoidance, it's awkward, it's time consuming, it's going to hurt their feelings. I'm not comfortable. My emotions are too involved in this right now. Maybe the number one excuse that I hear is like, so how do I even start the conversation? You know, because if
I say, hey, we need to talk, that's too serious.
It's weird. If I put the meeting on their calendar, they're going to be like, well, what's it about? Can you send me the agenda? And then I'm going to, it's going to, I mean, Clay, I'm not trying to meddle too much here. I'm speaking for myself. It's a lot of selfish reasons. I am basically saying the way I feel is more important than our relationship and your development. I just don't know any other way to say it. There's just, it's so much of it is about me and my utter hatred for awkwardness. And therefore, because I don't want something that's going to feel awkward, I'll just come up with a litany of excuses as to why I'm not going to do that, none of which are the best ultimately for me, and as we've talked about multiple times, for them as well. So what about you? Throw a couple
I'll throw
more.
out two more mistakes. I would say, I mean, I see this one a lot. I'll call it blunt force honesty, right? You know, where they just, I certainly have examples of this because I worked for a boss that this was, he would avoid. And then when he came with it, it was just soul crushing blunt force honesty. I'm just being real. Sorry, it's so honest. Deal with it, right? Another example, this would be my wife jokes about her dad, that this was his strategy as a child, is just he's a very thorough person, but the over explaining, right? Let me just start by saying this, and then 10 minutes later, you still haven't made your point, and you're still, it's the plane is just continuing to
going around,
circle around the airport, right? Because you don't know how to land it. I would say those are a couple of common mistakes that I see as well. For me personally, though, Adam, I would say I thought I had to choose between being honest or being liked for most of my career.
Say that again. I think that's helpful. Yeah.
I thought I had to choose between, am I going to be honest or am I going to be liked? So I'm really grateful that you brought this. You want to get into it?
Yeah, let's get into it. So I just call it the 3IQ. And that's because it's 4 parts. So there's 4 words. 3 of them start with the letter I, and the last one starts with the letter Q. And I just think it makes us smarter at how to give this. Again, these are for some of the deeper ones where maybe you don't know immediately what to say in that moment. And so these are great questions for self-reflection. And then this is your script for when you go and you talk to people. It also helps it come across in a more brain-friendly way with people. So people are going to see some similarities to what we talked about on the LBNT specifically, because the first I, so let me just go through it. It's intent, incident, impact, question. So the 3 I's: intent, incident, impact, and then you end with a question. So intent is just this idea of you need to declare your intent and let the person know why you're engaging in this conversation. We've talked about this with cynicism. We've talked about this so many times, Clay, that one of the biggest mistakes I see leaders make is they assume everybody's going to assume that they have good intent, and that doesn't always happen. So in the same way you start with liked best next time, that's an intent declaration on the front end. I'm for you. I don't think you're incompetent. I coach because I care. I value this relationship.
I believe in you.
I believe
Whatever
in you.
you can say that's true.
All those things. And if you are struggling to come up with something, literally just go to ChatGPT saying, I need to have a conversation. I want to declare my intent on the front end. What are some things I can say? And it'll give you some great scripts on things to share there. It's a little way sometimes on some of that gut check, like what is my intent right now? Because sometimes our intent's not always in the right spot. It's like, I just want to prove them wrong.
Getting this off my chest, not
right.
a great intent, right?
That's right. So when you can start with intent, that's going to help the listener go, this person's for me.
Yep.
That is huge, because you and I know if we have somebody that is giving us feedback and we don't believe they're for us, it's going to be, it takes an incredibly mature person to sift through that and find the takeaway. And I think we're asking a lot of people to assume that everybody is going to be that mature when even we struggle to be that mature sometimes with the feedback.
Do you know another environment, Adam, that has a very specific declaration of intent?
No, what is it? Tell me.
The wedding.
Yes. Go, say more.
As someone who has officiated plenty of weddings, it's one of the, I remember the first time I was really processing, why does a wedding flow? I mean, typical wedding, the traditional wedding has flowed the same way for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And usually right around the same time that you would ask who gives this woman to be married to this man, you do a declaration of intent where I think it makes so much sense. It's, to me, I love asking this couple, why are we all here?
Yeah.
You had us all, we all wanted to be watching football. You had us all get dressed up. There's hundreds of people here that you all have invited. Pops, you're paying for it all. Thanks, shout out. But why are we here? Declare your intentions for not only our time today, but also for this relationship. And there's something so healthy. It sets the stage. It says, hey, here's what I hope to happen. I'll never forget this one coaching conversation I had. I had a professional coach for about 4 years. And I had a conversation later that day that I was dreading. I was telling him about it. He said, well, tell me why you're dreading this conversation. And I said, because I feel like he's going to think that I'm trying to ruin his life.
That's right.
And he's like, well, maybe you should tell him that you're not. Oh,
Captain Obvious, but so good.
Right. I know. And I was like, I can do that. I guess that's good. So I started with the intention of, hey, I just want to let you know, you might think today that it sounds like I'm trying to hurt you. I am not. I care about you. I'm for you. I believe in you. Right. That is just getting your mindset right. Starting with what's your intention.
And again, as leaders, you sit there and go, well, do I really have to do that? Yeah. Because I think a lot of times, especially in that authority figure kind of hierarchy that we see at work a lot, and there is not going to be a lot of assumption of good intent. It's just the way it is.
That's right.
And it just feels so heavy coming from a boss. So let them know we do this because we care, and in so many different ways you can say that. All right, that's the first I.
Intent.
And so the second one is incident. And so listen, this is describing what happened, very factual, without exaggeration or judgment, without assigning intent to the person. Hey, with that customer, I know you were irritated that day, and so you came across real short. No.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, you always do that.
You always do, and then you never smile, with all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So what we want to do here is, I think, could you take out your phone and show them the movie or the photograph of the specific instant in time that you're talking about? This has got to be anchored in something that you hopefully witnessed, or that you saw, and you can describe in some level of detail. Because here's the deal with feedback: the better feedback is one that's focused on behavior, not personality.
That's right.
There's a time and place for some personality, attitudinal stuff, and you can use this formula for that. But we want this to try to be focused more on behavior. So instead of saying, to somebody, you're constantly late, you just need to be more mindful about time and start caring about people more. You're not the center of the universe. You can start with going, the last 3 meetings, you've come in at 8:05, 8:09, and then 8:12.
Which, by the way, is not keeping short accounts, right? It would be better if after the first meeting you say, hey.
You said.
Yeah, that's right. Hey,
today was 8:09.
And I understand you might have had a great excuse. In fact, I'm curious to know, how was your morning? Is everything going okay? But I also just want you to know how that might feel on the other side, right? But it's sticking to, I love the idea of just showing them the movie. Hey, here's what happened.
That's right. So it keeps it focused.
I looked around. You weren't there. 8:09. You walk in.
So that's
Did you
the
see it
incident we're
different?
talking
Right.
about. That's what we're talking about. So I need to have a conversation with you. It may be a little bit hard. I'm not trying to ruin your day. I'm not trying to make you feel embarrassed. I'm saying this conversation because I care. I looked around at 8 o'clock. You weren't there. I saw you come in at 8:09. So that's intent. That's incident.
And
Then the
then,
third, impact. This is maybe the hardest one. This is the third I, the impact, because this requires some vulnerability. It's so important because it lets people know the feedback I'm giving you, this isn't just a pet peeve. This is actually having a negative impact on the team. And so when you show up at 8:09, remember, I had the agenda and you were supposed to go first. And it was really important for you to go first because you needed to talk about that new marketing plan before we got into product development. And so then Sarah had to go first on talking about product development, but it just kind of messed with the whole flow of the meeting. Listen, we figured it out, but we set the meeting time. I just want to let you know it had an impact. And so here's my intent, here's the incident, and here is the impact. It reminds people that this is important. This isn't just a pet peeve. And I think, again, we've talked about on a few of these episodes, how do we not be a nag? Well, we're not a nag when we're talking about things that have an impact on the team.
that's right. Adam, as you're advising on this, this is a great system to start with the intent, the incident, and the impact. It requires some preparation. Or I would assume it is a leading question. It would be better if you did prepare some, right?
Yeah, and I think this is where some of the feedback goes awry is that we end up just talking about personality or things that sound like pet peeves when we are just, see it, say it. And we are just trying to go fast, that sometimes it is helpful to slow down and develop this habit of thinking through it this way. I think it is very similar, like if we go back to marriage stuff that you and I have dealt with, like a speaker-listener technique that a couple can use in conflict. Well, the first couple times you use it, you're like, pull out the rules, and you're like, okay, so I'm the speaker and you're the listener. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now I'm supposed to repeat back. After you do that 3 times, you're like, I got it. And now it just kind of becomes your default way of thinking about it. So that's where I like this system sometimes. For those people that are similar to me, that in an emotional moment you're maybe not thinking clearly, this at least gives you some journal prompts almost, some things to think about, to lay it out, and then it can become second nature. That would be what I'd say to that.
And I think if you will prepare, you might realize that the impact that I thought it had is not actually the thing that I care most about, right? You might go, did it affect the flow of the agenda? Yes. Were we able to handle that? Yes. But let me tell you, the real impact, as I've thought more about it, is I don't like the message that it sends to everybody, which is that you're above the law or that you don't value other people's time. That's what I'm most concerned about. We can finagle the agenda in the future if it happens again, but I just want to let you know it does have a greater impact than even that. I think it shows some thoughtfulness, right? That I've really thought through this, and it matters because I've put some time to prepare.
That's right. Okay, so those are the 3 I's. Here's my intent, here's the incident, showing them the video, and then here's the impact. This is the way it was negatively impacting the team. You really got to think through that. It could require some vulnerability there, because you may have to say, and now I look bad, or hey, I was embarrassed in that meeting because I didn't have whatever it is. You got lots of things there. That's the impact. And then the last one is ending on a question. And that is to just let people know I'm open for dialogue. This is a dialogue, not a monologue. And I think the question generally needs to be open-ended. It can't be, does that make sense? Yeah. And it can't just be, okay, so you good? We want to avoid the yes or no. Yeah, it's like, so that's the way. You can just go through those 3 things and go, okay, so that's the way I see it. Let me know how you see it. Or that's from my perspective. What are your thoughts here? Because I'd love to know. I maybe don't have all the data, and it keeps it open.
I was thinking about your, late to the meeting conversation, which, I mean, that feels like more in the keep short accounts category, right? But you might want to ask, hey, shoot me straight. Is 8 a.m. unreasonable? Just when it comes to drop off, when it comes to all that you have, is that a meeting that you think would be better to start at 8:30 or at 9 o'clock? I really want to know, because if this is going to continue to happen, I want to make sure that we're doing everything we can do to make it reasonable for people. So I think asking a question like that, it solicits the other person's buy-in. It solicits their voice, right? And it shows them that you really do want this to be a dialogue, that you want it to be two-way.
Yeah. And again, there may be some things that you just don't know. And so if you are asking, It could be helpful, and then you can come up with better solutions. So that's it, man. I think the 3IQ, again, for those moments, if you're tempted to stuff. I was in a room recently with some leaders, and I was sharing this system and kind of talking about my history of stuffing. And a leader, they asked some great questions that totally I had to bare my soul, talking about all these mistakes I've made with it. But it was helpful and it was fun. And one of the more insightful questions was, Adam, when do you know you need to employ this system? Like, when do you know?
Let me ask that, Adam.
Yeah.
Adam, when do you know you need to employ this system?
Well, for me, the clue is when I'm having pretend conversations with the person.
Yeah.
That's an indication I probably need to have a real conversation with the person.
Yeah, that's good.
And so it's funny. I say that and everybody, like half the audience starts nodding their head.
Yeah.
They're like,
They're like, I've been having one while you've been talking.
You did it this morning. So
that's right.
And so this is a good one to pull out then to go, okay, let me take what I'm feeling. Let me run it through the 3IQ. And then you've got a script. And then, man, let's just put a bow on all these 3 conversations with this, because one of the lies that I believe that holds me back from coaching is that there will be a perfect time to have the conversation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you take all of this that we've talked about, the 60-second coaching hack of just short accounts. You talked about the like best next time. You talk about the 3IQ system. I mean, Clay, in the end, I just don't know. It takes 5 seconds of insane courage. You just got to lean into it. You just got to start the conversation. There generally is no perfect time. Would you push back on that? Would you agree, disagree? What are your thoughts there?
Absolutely. And I would just say keeping an open mind, keeping your hands open. It forces you to be humble. It forces you to recognize you're not going to get it right.
That's
but
right.
Being determined to say the worst thing that could happen is me avoiding it or not having it.
That's right.
That's way worse than doing it wrong, not getting it right. But if you can go into it going, hey, I'm probably not going to handle this right, but I care about you so much. I love what you said at the beginning. I care about you more than I care about the way you feel about me. I care about your development more than I care about the way you feel about me. Caring about my own feelings. And so I wasn't going to not have it. I know I might not get it all right, but I really have thought through this. Yeah, I think that's a great way.
It is. It's like what I try to tell leaders is I'd rather you start the conversations awkwardly and find your groove in the middle than not have the conversation. And then there's a, as Kim Scott says, the dirty bomb explodes. And so, man, we could do 3 more episodes on this, and I'm sure there'll be some great things that'll come up through people sending us emails at info@howtolead.work, letting us know just some other questions they have with coaching and development. But this is the role. This is what we need to do as bosses. It's one of the most important things we do. And then I've got this sneaking suspicion, Clay, that when we're done with our careers and we look back, it's going to be the development of others in the coaching that we're going to be most proud of, more so than, for you and I, than the stages we stood on, the books that we wrote, for people, the new products they developed, the sales goals that they reached. I think they're going to look back and feel most proud of who they got to coach and develop.
And yeah, when you ask people, the men and women that meant the most to you, it's going to be the men and women that did this for us, right?
That's right.
So I think you're absolutely right. Bosses are out, coaches are in. I hopefully giving you some real practical ways to apply that. But let's keep growing. Let's keep becoming better coaches.
Let's do it.
You don't have to have coaching shorts and a whistle, but let's keep becoming better coaches.
That's right. Get the jacket though. The jacket's cool. That's all.
Yeah, that's true.
That. All right, buddy. Great to be with you as always. You too.
Well, that's all we got for today's episode of the How to Lead podcast. You can always reach out to us via email. We can be reached at info@howtolead.work. That's info@howtolead.work. Every episode is mixed and edited by the team over at Sound of a Rose. You can learn more about them at soundofarose.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you again next time.